What's going on, nerds? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Locker podcast. It's Brandon,
And Jimmy.
and we're going to do some DC talking because there's been a lot of DC news this last couple weeks.
And I'll be honest, I don't think it's all negative, where we've had a lot of negative in the past.
Yeah, I feel like it's been mostly negative, but I don't know. I guess they're going to try some different things here coming up in the future with their movies.
Well, I think they finally realized, oops, we made a mistake. And that mistake, namely, is that, and we've talked about this a lot with that Comic-Con, God, maybe 7 years ago, where they announced, hey, with the success of Man of Steel, we're going to bring Batman and Superman together and put Wonder Woman and then Justice League. It's like, why don't you just develop it a little? But they didn't, and they, in our humble opinion, screwed it up. But Warner Brothers head Kevin Sugiura came out and confirmed that the studio is moving forward with more of a standalone strategy, which makes sense because how would you do a reboot with Wonder Woman and Aquaman, which have been really successful films? Now, whether you liked the content or not, up in the air, but the films themselves have been terribly successful. So why go ahead and reboot something that's already been successful when you've had extreme failures such as Dawn of Justice and Justice League?
I mean, the thing is I feel like I can't tell if I know people who just didn't like Aquaman did well, but I don't know that I know anyone who was like, "Hey guys, Aquaman was a really good movie I liked." Like I think it did well because everybody wanted to see Jason Momoa do stuff, but I don't know if you're necessarily going to get the same kind of success out of another Aquaman movie. I mean, it makes sense, I understand what you're saying, why reboot it, but now you're losing that whole kind of connected universe because you want everything to be more loosely, together.
Well, I'm hoping with this decision, and I guess I'm just this eternal optimist, I'm hoping they realize, okay, we can start smaller. And I understand that sounds weird because they've already done it and we're like halfway through this, but we can restart smaller with the stories we already know. We don't need to do origin stories now because it's already been cleared up, and we can just tell a great story and hopefully hire good directors, good writers to get this point across. And I'm hoping that we see this relatively quickly with Wonder Woman's already coming out, but we have a good one with the original. Yes, it has its faults, but it was overall a really good movie. So I'm hoping with the sequel, we'll see more of this. Hey, this is a standalone movie. We're not worried about what's going on with Batman, Superman, Flash, Cyborg, whatever. We're going to actually have a good Wonder Woman movie and not worry about that. And then, because they've already announced the Aquaman sequel, we'll have that. They're talking about Flash and so on. So I'm hoping we get that.
Yeah, real quick, just before I forget about it, I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the podcast or if we've talked about it in person, but my least favorite part of the Wonder Woman movie was the last 20 minutes, and I'm glad you brought that up. Just like the ending being kind of a mess.
Yeah, it really was, and I kind of want to rage against the casting. I don't remember the character's name, but the bad guy.
Ares.
Yeah, I'm sorry, his public persona, whatever.
Oh,
Ares, yeah.
his yeah, like his
Yeah,
cover name or whatever.
and even his real name in real life. But it's like that dude almost always plays a bad guy in movies. If you're trying to fool us with who the bad guy is, maybe cast somebody who's not normally a bad guy.
Sir Patrick.
Yes, so it's like, dude, find somebody else who's just as good an actor because he's a great actor, but somebody else who's not always the bad guy. Because
Lupin, my dude, he's great. But it wasn't even that it was him. It was just that I got pissed off because it was like you have this movie. She comes in, she storms, this whole fucking town, takes it back almost single handedly, and then you have this huge boss fight, and he's like picking things up with his mind and throwing them. I'm like, you
yeah,
can't let's have a badass fucking fight. She just took out a whole town by herself. Like she just reclaimed an entire village basically single handedly, and you're gonna like not give us a full fucking boss battle. Like, come on, guys. Like, I don't know. That was my issue with that. But
Well, and once
um,
again, DC had source material. She's battled Ares in the comics
yeah,
great before, so why not use some of that? But no,
I mean,
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think they
uh,
dropped the ball on that ending.
yeah. But anyways, as far as everything being more loosely together, I think Aquaman and Shazam are really going to be the ones that tell like if that idea is salvageable. You know, Aquaman did well, can't deny that. It did really well at the box office, despite what either of us thought of the movie itself. But you know, with Shazam coming out here in the next, is it next couple weeks? Is it in March or is it in April? I think it's in. I think it's April. Either way, um, I think that'll be kind of the tell if they can be successful with these movies and not try to have a giant connected universe.
And I appreciate that they're going with a character who, although if you know comic books, he's a big character. If you don't know comic books, it's more of a who's this guy? Which
Yeah.
makes to me makes sense and is smart because of course you want to make a Superman, of course you want to make a Batman, but to me they botched that. So let's go with a different
Oh, they
character and see what
botched it
happens.
so fucking hard. Well, now you're gonna have, like I said, you know, now you're gonna have a Batman movie where it's a prequel and he's a younger guy and he's, you know, trying to figure out his, you know, ways of being Batman or whatever. And if that does well, it's like you already made fucking Justice League.
Yeah.
And I think you're gonna run into the same thing you ran into with the X-Men franchise, where you're like, oh man, Hugh Jackman's such a good Wolverine, we can't possibly just start it over. And it's like, well, you know, I love Hugh Jackman, but I would have sacrificed, you know, most of his roles for better X Men movies.
Which is something we should mention, which we haven't officially. Ben Affleck is officially not Batman anymore. So
Ah,
he's out, which I know you had your crying moment and you were upset by that and I yeah, so finally your wish comes true, Brandon. No more Ben Affleck Batman.
I'm so happy. I'm just so happy. I didn't like it from the beginning. I didn't like it in the movie. I
Well, it
hope
made no
this is a
sense.
better. I hope it's a better Batman movie. I really do. I just hope it's a better one. That's all I can cross my fingers and hope for. But
Well, technically they haven't really ever made a Batman movie since Christopher Nolan. So you can hang your hat on that.
okay, yeah, that's true. But
But yeah, I
anyways,
was happy to see that because I think that frees them up to tell better stories. And I thought Ben did fine. He was okay. It wasn't his fault that that movie
no,
sucked.
you're absolutely right. He is a very good actor. I just didn't like the idea of it. I don't know. There was just something about it that I was like, I just don't see him as being Batman.
Yeah.
But you can also tell he kind of wasn't into it anymore either. Like I think even going into Justice League, I think as Justice League was coming out when they realized how bad it was gonna perform, he was kind of like, oh, this sucks.
And I really think his worst fears came true. Like he knew signing on to it that there were going to be there were potential issues, and everything came true as far as it was bad writing. I can't necessarily say bad directing, but it was definitely bad writing. The story made no sense. It made no sense, like you have said often. Why is Batman killing people? This is not the Batman or the Superman, for that matter, that
Yeah.
we know. This is stupid.
And that was just Zack Snyder being Zack Snyder, but you know,
Uh
wanting to be like,
huh.
I'm gonna take this universe and make it mine. And that's what I really well I'm not trying to get off on a Marvel kick here, but you know, they give us what the fans want. They don't really give a shit about, you know, creative control in the sense that like, you know, if you remember the whole Edgar Wright thing, he ended up leaving Ant-Man because they wouldn't let him do exactly what he wanted.
Hmm.
But you know, there's still obviously through Guardians, through even Thor Ragnarok, you can see like certain directors' personal touches. But all in all, just stick to what the fucking fans want.
Totally agree.
Speaking of what I guess I don't know fans want, James Gunn, you know he's going to be doing the new Suicide Squad movie. Maybe that wasn't the best transition, but Will Smith is out as Deadshot,
Yep,
due
scheduling
to
conflict.
yes, and actually one of the movies is I guess the another movie he's doing with who is it? David. Who's the director of Suicide Squad? David Ayer.
Oh,
Did I just fuck that up?
no, I think you're right. David Ayer?
Yeah. Either
I know it
way,
sucked.
he has a movie coming out with him as well. That's part of the thing that's messing up his whole schedule. But he's been replaced by Idris Elba, David Ayer. Yeah.
Awesome.
Which is I feel like that's your Terrence Howard for
Oh,
Don Cheadle
nice.
moment. But I don't want to be rude to Will Smith because I fucking love Will Smith. I've always loved Will Smith. But
Again, it wasn't his fault.
exactly, wasn't his fault. But he's out. I think it's really cool he got Idris Elba to go on. I mean, neither of these actors feel like Deadshot to me, but whatever. At least they're good actors, and that part of the film will be enjoyable.
Yeah.
But James Gunn has
And
an entirely new team with Suicide Squad.
and I think that's the thing. Like, if you told me these are the characters, I'll let you read off in a second, but these characters are the ones that are going to headline this movie, I'd be like, I am not watching this movie. This sounds stupid. But because it's James Gunn, I'm like, dude, I will follow you into hell because your movies are amazing.
If this does well, if this movie really does well, one for James Gunn is kind of a new universe he's allowed to do his thing with.
Hmm.
It's interesting to see what will happen with the comics because, as you can tell with movies, comics have been a huge factor in how they've changed since movies have started coming out. Even Harley Quinn getting a spot in the Suicide Squad movie, and now she's got her own series, and just her popularity's more popular than it's ever been. This could be interesting. So right now, James Gunn's team is, well, I guess Deadshot. He'll be on it. Um, Ratcatcher, King Shark, Mr. Polka Dot, and Peacemaker. Of course, with Margot Robbie, I guess, returning for that, which will be her third DC movie.
Hmm.
And Rick Flag is not appearing in the movie either.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know these characters. Obviously I know Harley Quinn and I know Deadshot, but when you say Ratcatcher, King Shark, a little bit, Mr. Polka Dot, and Peacemaker, it's like, who is this? Like a weird Image comic? What? I don't know what this is. So to me, I was floored to see those names.
Mr. Polka Dot was, I think he was a Batman villain originally, but it was like when Batman was silly and goofy.
Hmm.
Um, King Shark is, I remember him in some Green Lantern comics, but I'm sure he has more to do with Aquaman than anything else. Uh, Ratcatcher's a Batman villain, and Peacemaker, I couldn't remember who. I'm gonna have to look that one up. Peacemaker.
But it definitely shows the range of James Gunn and how big of a nerd he is.
Oh,
Like these are
okay. I've
clearly handpicked from him.
I've I've seen Peacemaker and stuff. He was one of the ones that was originally owned by Charlton Comics.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I remember. Last thing I remember seeing him in was the last Blue Beetle run. But anyways, it's an interesting list. No word on any of the other ones. Captain Boomerang, Enchantress, Katana, Killer Croc, Jared
Your favorite
Leto.
Killer Croc.
Oh God, that was just so bad. Don't
I
do remember
wonder.
this is an Academy Award winning movie we're
I
talking
was
for.
just gonna say, if James Gunn does not win an Academy Award for this, is it seen as a failure?
Wow, I didn't think about that, sir.
Yeah, poor guy. He's got a lot to live up to.
Yeah, he does. Apparently. Um,
It's like I can't even say that without laughing.
yeah, for real. But yeah, that's what this is shaping up to be, and I almost feel like at this point I'll see it out of just my appreciation for James Gunn and my, well, it can't get worse than the last one.
Yeah, I'll be honest. If James Gunn's name was not on that, I would have zero interest, even with Idris, and I love Idris. But with James Gunn on board, I'll see it.
Yeah, see, that was my whole thing with Idris Elba is like, I love him. He's a great actor. I love the majority of the movies he's in, but there's almost nothing that makes me excited. Like, I'll see it, but I'm seeing it out of like support for James Gunn and knowing that if it's bad, it can't be worse than the first one.
That's a good way to look at it.
That could be my famous last words. It could be even more terrible. Or it could be dope. And I'd be sitting here, sometime next year being like, oh my God, it's the best.
I hope
I
we're
love
at that point.
Suicide Squad.
I hope we're, but that's not the weirdest movie news that we have. This one blows my mind, Brandon, that we are getting an Aquaman spin-off. For real. I mean,
I know. We're getting a spin off, not a sequel. Well, we're getting a sequel, but we're getting a spin off. Now,
and it's
if
not like,
you.
hey, we loved Black Manta so much, we're going to just spin him off to his own movie. No, no.
That's what I mean. Now, before you even say it, like, in that movie, when you heard spin off, what would you have thought they were going to do?
I would say, yeah, Black Manta would probably be the one I'd be like, yeah, maybe, because,
Fucking
Deep Sea
Black
Quest or
Manta,
whatever.
the asshole who has to breathe in the toilet, like anybody at that point, you're like,
Yeah,
is
even
okay, who are
Mira,
they giving a
whatever.
spin-off to? Whatever, yeah, exactly. Instead, we're getting the trench.
Yeah. And the trench with no characters from Aquaman.
Well, the trench is a bunch of like bloodthirsty fish people. And like, don't get me wrong, that's one of the cooler scenes of the movie to me. And I think that's just because it's, James Wan and he
Yeah.
does really good horror movies and he had a chance to put his little horror touch, on that movie. But I can't imagine like I just feel like Warner Brothers is like we can make a scary fish movie, but we'll base it in the DC unit. You know what I mean? It just I don't know. It feels weird. Does it
It's
feel weird
so
to you?
ridiculous. And I guess this was one of my problems with Aquaman itself. It's like you had essentially three bad guys. Ocean Master, Black Manta, and the Trench.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so you focus on the Trench as a spin-off? What the hell are you thinking? Like literally, what the hell are you thinking? There's no speaking parts for these guys. What
And
the
I'm
hell?
wondering if it's either going to be okay. So is it going to be one where it's people dealing with the trench, like people fighting the trench that end up in these infested waters? Or is it going to be a prequel where you find out how the trench became the trench?
Oh, that is something we forgot to mention. The events of the Trench, they haven't named it yet, but that's what we're calling it, takes place after Aquaman.
Okay, so yeah, it's probably going to be people running. I think they see something for a good horror movie because I would argue that that was one of the stronger scenes of the film.
I can see that, but it's like, okay, so who is wandering into the trench? Is an
Oh,
Atlantean?
I completely agree with you.
What
Especially
the
because at the
hell?
end of the movie, everybody gets along.
Yeah,
Like
I'm.
everyone unites under fucking Aquaman, including the trench.
If you guys have been with Nerd Locker long enough, and you remember the days where we did the videos and we would try and surprise Brandon with a movie that was coming out, this would have been probably the best one we ever did because
Yeah,
that's how bad this idea is.
you would have got me on that one because I couldn't believe that. I don't know. Like I said, I think they want to use that to James Wan's like strength, but it's not going to be viewed as a superhero movie.
No, it's
Like
going to be.
unless they're going off of that, like maybe they don't give a shit. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck DC is thinking with their movies, but
Maybe they saw Venom and were like, that made a lot of money. We could do that.
you could be right. I'm just hoping, best case scenario with this is that we get a really good horror movie from James Wan.
Yeah, crossing our fingers again with DC. Always crossing our fingers.
Yeah. And speaking of more James Wan news with DC, he will be producing the Swamp Thing live action, which Titans was okay. I like Doom Patrol so far. I'm really excited for Swamp Thing, but they've
That's
added
how
in.
you announce this. That's how you announce this. You don't go with the fucking lead with and Adrienne Barbeau, the goddess of the original 1982 version,
Shot is
makes
of the
her
original
return.
movie that most people don't
Oh,
even believe was a real movie.
it's a
That when
Wes
I just
Craven classic, sir.
to us, other people don't know it exists.
I said this off screen. I will say it now that we are recording. Adrienne Barbeau was just the best looking woman who never showed her boobs. It was like, come on, do it, do it, do it. Never did. So disappointing.
Well, maybe you'll
I
get a second go around here in the new
don't
Swamp
want it. I
Thing.
don't want it now, dude.
Well,
Missed
too
our
bad.
chance.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Oh, I am beggar. I'm old.
Um, I uh, I don't know. It's looks like it's coming together pretty well. So, fingers crossed.
I'll be honest. I really wish, and I know this is newer, so of course this is fantasy that they go this route. But the Scott Snyder run was
Oh,
phenomenal, and I wish they were focusing on that.
they might be.
Um,
They
they
might be
they
doing
might touch
something like
upon it,
it.
but right now they're talking more about the Alan Moore run. So we'll see. But I just thought Scott Snyder's Swamp Thing was just so amazing, and frankly, the way he teamed up with Animal Man at the time was
Both
just
of those. Jeff
awesome.
Lemire's Animal Man run
Yeah.
was fucking amazing too.
Oh,
Like
so good. I know
fucking
people rip on the new 52, but that relaunch was phenomenal. I loved it.
there was a lot of bad in the new 52, but two of the shining stars to me was Swamp Thing and Animal Man.
Hmm. Completely agree. And they both got
Um,
canceled.
yeah, yeah. I want to say they switched Swamp Thing to a different writer and then it got canceled. I think they
Yes, they did.
should have just ended it with Snyder, but I don't know. That was those. Yeah. Either way, those were two of the good ones on there. Um, I'm hoping that they do pull from that because it does look like they try to pull from more recent stuff with some of the live action. So we'll see. But
And I'm
you know,
curious because Mark, I wouldn't know this. I had to look it up. But Mark Verheiden is one of the writers, and he worked on Ash versus Evil Dead. And Ash versus Evil Dead was awesome. I loved that show. So I hope he's able to bring some of that horror comedy to Swamp Thing. I think that would be great.
I'm sure you might. I mean, they hired him for a reason, and I enjoyed that show as well. So we'll have to have the DC outlook. Hope for the best.
Exactly. Cross our fingers again.
Cross our fingers. Hope for the best. I guess moving on to more DC news. Uh, Arrow, the kind of flagship DC CW show that started it all, is ending after 8 seasons.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. I can't remember the last season I watched, but on the flip side, it's kind of sad because I love Oliver Queen. I thought that was a great kickoff. Like obviously they had Smallville. We know, hey nerds, don't write into us saying, hey, they had Smallville first. We get it, we know that, but we're talking about like the modern run. And Arrow relaunched that superhero gig on CW, and it was so popular and did so well that they did a soft pilot with the Flash, and then the Legends of Tomorrow, and then brought over Supergirl, and now Black Lightning. So yeah, it really was Arrow, and I'm sad it's ending, but at the same time, it's like I haven't watched it in a couple years, so I guess that's a good thing.
I I've been watching this season. I've been trying to keep up on everything this season, best of my ability, and it is getting a little. I don't know. Maybe they painted themselves into a corner with some of the storylines because it's like, he was the vigilante, and then it was Oliver Queen, but it wasn't Oliver Queen, and then Oliver Queen becomes Green Arrow to avenge himself, because he wasn't the original guy, but he was. And then he gets outed, and then someone else says they're Green Arrow, and then it gets thing, and and it's like now everyone knows he's Green Arrow, and now he works for the cops, and I'm just like, I don't know, I like the show, and I love him as Oliver Queen, and I love the Elseworld stuff and the crossovers and all that, but maybe as an actual show by itself, I'd have, maybe it is time to end on a high note.
And it would be cool if he's still involved
I hope he
with
is. I really hope
in
he
the
is.
crossovers and stuff because I mean those were great.
I hope he is. I hope we continue to see Stephen Amell as Green Arrow because he's a great Oliver Queen, and
And he's one of those guys that he owns the role. Like yes, I know it's fiction, but he takes that serious. He does what he can off screen to promote everything he can. And to me, he's been a good ambassador for Arrow.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. I think he is. I think he enjoys it, and I think that makes all the difference.
Yeah, big time.
You know, saying you enjoy your or really enjoying your character is gonna make you, you know, do a better job.
I hope he just stays fit, man, because what he had to
He
do for
is.
the Arrow, if he's
He
just
is
like, you know
jacked.
what, I'm retired, I'm going to become a fat guy like Jimmy, I feel bad for him if that's the case.
You know, he's also a wrestler.
Is he really? I
Yeah,
didn't know
he
that.
wrestles with the Young Bucks, and I think he lost his first match. Well, he originally fought WWE with. Never mind. I won't get into it. You don't care. But anyway, he's a
No,
wrestler.
I
He's
just want to
wrestled
make it
before.
clear. I don't. I really don't. Thank you,
He's
Brandon.
wrestled before. He's dope. Wrestling's dope. Anyways,
There's so many jokes I want to tell.
I know.
Anywho,
I'm
okay.
very aware.
What's our last bit of news there, Brandon, that has nothing to do with wrestling?
That Batwoman is gonna be the new show. Nope, there's one after that.
No, you're right though. Batwoman is going to be replacing Arrow. So you're right. I jumped the gun because I was so flustered with wrestling.
I'm excited for Batwoman.
You know what? I recently finally saw the Meg, um, which I thought was fantastic and fun. But what's her name? The actress who's going to be Batwoman.
Ruby Rose.
Yes, yeah, and she was in it, and I was like, oh, cool, that's her, that's fun. And obviously, it's not going to be anything like she is in that, but it was just like, okay, cool, I like her as an actress. I'm curious to see how she's going to play Batwoman.
Yeah. I enjoyed her in the crossover. Um, I don't know. I have hope for that show. I hope it's a good replacement to Arrow, because that's the slot it'll be taking. But what's the last bit of news? What's the news after that?
We have a Flash update, which I don't know if I'm excited for or not, because I really like the character Flash from the comic books. I like the TV show The Flash, but so far I've not been impressed with the Flash in film. Nothing against Ezra Miller. He's
Because
again,
they
he's
haven't
fine, but
really done anything.
no, like he made a joke with Batman that oh, you've got money, that's your superpower. Like, okay,
Ha ha ha.
yeah, dumb, but there's some hope in that the writing directing team of John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, who did Game Night, are going to rewrite the current script. I don't know what the current script looked like. Supposedly it was an adaptation of Flashpoint, which I do like. But we've seen
That's a
what,
lot to just dive in with, though, don't you think? Like,
and that's what our argument with Aquaman was. It's like, okay, you theoretically did um, Thrones of Atlantis, the storyline, but you did too much. You didn't need to tackle everything. You could have just said Master versus Aquaman. Who's going to be the king? Okay.
yeah,
Then you throw Black Manta in and the trench, and it's like, Jesus Christ, guys, you did too much. And if they do Flashpoint as Flashpoint, it's like, guys, you're doing too much for a single movie.
yeah.
But again, crossing my fingers, have faith in these guys because they penned Spider-Man: Homecoming, and to be honest, I did not want to see another Spider-Man movie because we'd had 5 to date, all of them good or bad in some form or another, but getting worn out from Spider-Man and reboots. And then you see Spider-Man: Homecoming, you're like, holy crap, finally, this is Spider-Man. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they can do that with the film version of Barry Allen.
Cross our fingers, hope for the best.
Yes, there's no production date or release date yet, so I guess they have time to screw that up or make it
We
better.
will see where they end up with that.
True dat.
So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for our DC news.
Yeah, DC released a whole bunch of stuff this past week or so, and um, I hope they're coming to terms with their screw ups
DC's
and
like,
they're
we're
fixing it.
still breathing. We're still breathing, guys. Don't count us out.
Yeah, yeah, they certainly are.
So yeah, that's gonna do it for DC. But thanks for listening, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Hit us up on the social medias. And until next time, you guys have a nerdy week.